King Tutankhamun is arguably the most famous pharaoh in all of Egypt, at least nowadays. But did you know that he was almost wiped out of ancient Egyptian records? So why did later ancient Egyptians hate King Tut? Unfortunately, and kind of hysterically, it really has absolutely nothing to do with King Tutankhamun himself. It all has to do with his father, Akhenaten. His father is sometimes referred to as the heretic king, though I really don't like that term itself. But during his reign, he changed almost everything in ancient Egyptian culture, from the art, the religion, the location of the capital city, even building a completely new city in just a couple of years. When Akhenaten died, Tutankhamun was a very, very young child, and he actually at the time had the name Tutankhaten because of his father's reverence to the god called the Aten. Tutankhamun and his court may have stayed in the new city called Akhetaten for a few years before essentially trying to say, let's just go back to normal. Tutankhamun changes his name back and then moves the entire court back to Thebes, though most of these decisions were probably being made by the higher officials working with the boy king. And well, then he dies. After that, his vizier, a man named Ai, takes over to become pharaoh because Tutankhamun didn't have any living children. Now, Ai, as you can see here, was also a vizier of Tutankhamun's father, and you can see him being depicted here in that Amarna period style. And so he had been the vizier for 2 different pharaohs before essentially he rose to the throne, and he continued to rule for another few years, pretending like everything was essentially normal and that this 14-year stint at a completely different other city with a completely different other god never really happened. And then he dies, and a general named Horemheb takes the throne. Now, Horemheb was different, and he essentially decides that the easiest way to move on from this strange time is just to kind of wipe the names and images of these 3 previous pharaohs off the face of the earth. He sends people back to Akhetaten and other locations to destroy parts of temples and anything that survived from the Amarna period, talking about Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, or even Ai. And this is why none of these 3 pharaohs are really ever included in any of the king's lists, which I have a couple videos that I just posted on. So yeah, it's not that they really hated Tut, but it's more that they hated his dad, and even though Tut really tried to change things back to the way before, Horemheb and later pharaohs just pretty much thought it was easier to not talk about before. This is one of my favorite subjects to talk about because, to be honest, I tell this to people all the time and they had absolutely no idea that Tutankhamun really did nothing in his reign. He didn't do any large military conquests, he didn't really build any large sweeping temples, and he just didn't really do much. And the only reason that he is truly famous is because he was tried to kind of be wiped out of the minds of the ancient Egyptians, and because we have a nearly preserved tomb for him. If his tomb had been fully looted, like all of the others from the Valley of the Kings, I don't think he would be nearly as famous as he is today.